Hi, I'm Drayton Blackgrove. I'm a founding member of Kentucky Steam Heritage Corporation, and the year is 2024. This organization, believe it or not, has been around since 2016. That's when we announced it to the world. But going back even further to 2014, that's when the idea for bringing Kentucky Steam to life came about. I remember meeting my Facebook friend Chris Campbell for the first time in Owasso, Michigan at Train Expo. And Chris and I decided to chase nickel plate 765 all the way up and down the Great Lakes Central Railroad, and we made many great memories together. And I knew that this is a guy that I was going to be friends with for a long time. Chris was born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky, and he grew up with a passion for steam locomotives, remembering locomotives like 611 and 2765, the nickel plate 765 disguised as a C&O engine. And there was something about that low-mounted headlight that really spoke to Chris. The lines of a Chesapeake and Ohio steam locomotive, there was just something about it that made Chris want to see a locomotive like Chesapeake and Ohio 2716 run again. And Chris shared that dream with me in those chases as we went up and down the Great Lakes Central Railroad getting our pictures of 765. And I said, Chris, you know, if this is something you really want to pursue, I'm all in. And I volunteered my multimedia skills to help Chris establish a social media presence and also produce videos for the organization that would become Kentucky Steam. Well, at that time, we didn't actually know anyone in the steam preservation industry. We looked around and eventually became friends with Jason Subchinski, who's now our Chief Mechanical Officer here at Kentucky Steam. He was integral to the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society's 21st Century Steam excursion trips. And, you know, we really thought that Jason would be someone who would see that same vision and support it. And when we shared our idea with Jason, he was all on board with it. Then Chris met TJ Mahan. They actually knew each other back in high school and actually rode a couple of excursions together on Norfolk Southern behind 611, and they reconnected. TJ actually used to work for CSX on the Eastern Kentucky subdivision. Then we met Joe Nugent, who had lots of experience working on and restoring historic equipment at the Bluegrass Railroad Museum. And we also met Chad Harpool, who's a business guy here in Kentucky who has a lot of great connections in the Commonwealth. And the dream team kind of came together, and I remember our first initial meetings. You know, this steam locomotive, it needs another chance on life. If we pursue this, if we approach Kentucky Railway Museum, they're going to want to know, where are you guys going to work on this engine? And so we began to look at different sites throughout Kentucky. An early contender was the former Southern Railway and later Norfolk Southern shop facilities in Ludlow, Kentucky. We soon realized that wouldn't work out. And then TJ, like I said, who used to work for CSX, said, what about that railroad yard in Ravenna? I don't even think they're using it anymore. And, you know, I think there's a car repair shop that's been abandoned for about 15 years. Maybe that would be a good site. Well, through our various different connections in the railroad industry, we approached CSX. We began actually talking to CSX all the way back in 2016 about the possibility of acquiring part of the railroad yard, a former L&N railroad yard here in Irvine, Ravenna. While those talks were ongoing, we signed the lease with the Kentucky Railway Museum, and on 2/7/16, we announced our vision for the future, restoring Chesapeake and Ohio 2716 by 2020. We've come a long way since then. In 2019, we moved 2716 from the Kentucky Railway Museum to our new home here in Irvine, Ravenna. Chris has been such an integral part of that entire process, from, you know, getting the lease with KRM to a lot of the operations going on here in Irvine, Ravenna, to actually getting the locomotive moved. Also, our partnership with RJ Corman. Without Chris, none of that would have been possible. And, you know, just seeing what this organization has come from basically just two guys hanging out, rail fanning, dreaming, to what it is today. I'm standing here on a music pavilion outside the former CSX car repair facility. To see it go from an idea to a physical place and an economic development project, none of it would have been possible without Chris Campbell. Well, today we're announcing that Chris Campbell is taking on a new role as Chief Administration Officer. And today I'm going to introduce our new president, Joe Darby. Joe, would you mind joining joining me here on camera?
Absolutely.
Joe, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely.
So Joe, how long have you been involved with Kentucky STEAM, and tell me a little bit about your responsibilities here as president?
Sure. Well, I've been involved with Kentucky STEAM really since 2020 when you think about it. It was actually Jason who invited me down, and I was actually here for the Heritage Highball in 2019, but I didn't really formally start getting involved until about 2020. And originally I was just a volunteer. I came on as, somebody working in the shop doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes because I currently live in Detroit, Michigan. As far as my continued roles and responsibilities, I eventually became a board member here and rose up the ranks, got involved with grant writing, got involved with some of the engineering behind the scenes here, really started driving forward some of the background administrative work to really kind of bring us up and fill in our bases and build a really strong foundation for the organization. And as we roll into 2015, and with myself rolling into the presidential role, I feel like I'll continue building upon those strong suits as we continue to work towards getting the 2716 built, working towards developing the site here in Ravenna, Kentucky, and working towards fulfilling our mission of becoming an economic development organization here within the foothills of beautiful Appalachian.
Sure, sure. And one of the things that we really want to stress is that, this organization went from, hey, let's restore a steam locomotive and maybe operate it somewhere, to an economic development project that has surpassed our wildest imagination. From a music venue where you'll eventually be able to hear concerts, to a full-on restoration facility where there are actually multiple steam locomotives being restored currently. It's just incredible to see where it's come from the ground up. And Joe, I was wondering if you could kind of speak to Chris Campbell's role, his new role, what Chris will be taking over, and also how much of an impact Chris has had to get us to this point.
Absolutely. Well, to really kind of succinctly put it, Chris was absolutely instrumental in developing where we're at today in terms of all the acquisitions, the land acquisition we're currently standing on, the acquisition of the lease for 2716, the acquisition of the railroad cars from ITM during that situation, the acquisition of funding for getting us to this point, and there's just so much currently that really has his name on it. And that's not to underscore the efforts and abilities of all our other officers, board members, and volunteers, but Chris was leading the charge for us up until this point, and we want to thank him for everything that he has done going forward from this, or going back from this point. As far as looking to the future, what Chris is going to be doing, the chief administrative officer is really going to be responsible for grant administration. So as you know, this organization was privy and grateful to receive $1.9 million from the Abandoned Mine Lands grant, or the AMLR grant, and $5 million from the Environmental Protection Agency for remediation of this site. So Chris will be overseeing both of those grants and making sure that the funds are properly dispersed and ensuring that the work is done in an efficient and timely manner.
Excellent, excellent. So, Joe, what are some of the things that you see yourself pushing forward to in 2025?
So for 2025, as we roll forward, I really want to see a reestablishment of some of the basics that we at Kentucky STEAM have developed over time. I would really want to see us push into getting a capital campaign started, not only for the 2716, but for the yard in general. There's just so much here that goes beyond just restoring the 2716, and while I do want to fulfill Chris's original vision of seeing the locomotive run, we have taken on so much more as an economic development concern, and there is a lot of impact that will be driven by our success here. The concert venue that we're standing on will help bring tourism to this area in droves to see some of their favorite acts. The continual building up of our site with event venues, with camping and all that, will eventually drive people to come and actually stay and spend money here within Estill County. And we want to continue to drive those initiatives going forward into 2025. Some of the other things that I wish to see include working towards streamlining certain processes to make sure that we're able to more efficiently achieve our goals, and really kind of put the organization in a place where we're really kind of knocking out all of our basic capabilities, and then we're ready to take on more.
Sure. Well, and you and I were having a conversation earlier off camera. a lot of the grant monies that we've graciously been given, a lot of that work is going to getting our home in order. A lot of folks, like for instance, the EPA grant, this yard that we're standing in was a huge hub on the Eastern Kentucky Division. This line basically was 125 miles long. It was built to haul coal trains. And 110 years ago, the tracks were not the same standard as what they are today. The coal cars that they used were really primitive compared to what we have now. Jointed rail, the cars bouncing back and forth, they filled those cars to the brim. Chunks of coal would sometimes fall off the edges of those cars. And to this day, even looking off camera right now, I can see small chunks of coal alongside the rails here in the few tracks of this yard that are left. That grant, while it is a tremendous amount of money, is going to go to cleaning up things like that. And it might not be the exciting sound of a steam locomotive charging down the track, but being able to clean up the coal, clean up this property, get it ready so that we can have future events, maybe even excursions one day. To get this property and our home in order is our #1 priority. So, Joe, while our supporters and our viewers, people across the country, are very excited and eager to see 2716 run, it's going to be a little bit before that happens, and we really need their help. So how can people get involved, and how can people help us reach the goal of not only getting this property ready, but eventually getting 2716 running?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the easiest things you can do is volunteer your time, volunteer your skill set. We always are looking for people to come out here and lend a helping hand. This organization, as we've stated before, is so much more than just restoring a steam locomotive. We have facilities we need to update. We have our shop office back here that needs several updates done to it so our volunteers can work there safely. Our yard office needs updates so that we can continue to preserve that building. We also just need people to help out with administrative things on the back end for, helping us with financials, with helping us with volunteer management, membership management, stuff like that. So every skill set you can think of is applicable to this project. And beyond that, like I said, we're going to be starting capital drives. So, if you have $10, $5, once we get these capital drives out here, donate. Every donation that you throw towards this project really does help a region that has been in some drastic need of improvement since the loss of the coal industry. And our organization fulfills that role. It really will help drive home, the fact that these people are here and will need the ability to actually have jobs and continue to grow economically.
Sure. Yeah, and it's been said before, our good friend Ron Flannery, who was there at the beginning, he said, the thing about Eastern Kentucky is you're not going to have the widget company necessarily come in and build a giant distribution facility on top of a mountain. But if you have an economic development project, an attraction, which is what this yard is going to be, we're standing on a music venue. A lot of people might be familiar with Tyler Childers. Tyler Childers lives here in Estill County. There are other musicians, Sturgill Simpson. He's from Jackson, Jackson, Kentucky, just down the line. So there's a huge music scene here in Eastern Kentucky. We've got microbreweries nearby. There's all kinds of exciting things going on in this region, and we want to be a big part of telling that story. We've heard time and time again, this area has some of the best people in the world. They don't need, a hand down, they need a hand up. And that's what we believe this organization can be.
And that was actually one of the things that really drew me to this project, was the strength of the Appalachian people. I am myself not an Appalachian person. I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia, if those of you are familiar with that railroad and that park, and actually graduated from Georgia Tech with a degree in mechanical engineering. So with that, I have spent a lot of time in the southern Appalachian region. It was actually my favorite place growing up and going to the Great Smoky Mountain Railroad, for those of you who are familiar. And this organization, this mission really kind of brought back those memories of what the Great Smoky Mountain Railroad did for the communities of Western North Carolina. And just like the citizens of that area and that region of Western North Carolina, it is incredible what they've been able to do with that region, with the resources that they've been given. And I see that same opportunity here for people to rise up from the losses that they have seen and really turn this place into something special. And I want to be a part of that. And, I've been given the honor of leading people here to become something that could be and will be a world-class organization with a world-class facility with a world-class group of people behind it. And I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, I'm excited for the future too. And we really would like to see you be part of that. Joe came here in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. Our vision, our 2020 vision of getting 2716 running by then was really put on hold. We didn't even acquire this property until 2018. So the restoration began in 2019. It's still ongoing. We want you to be part of that. And like Joe was saying, you don't have to be mechanically inclined to get involved. We need people on the administration side. So even financial, if bookkeeping's your thing, you have a spot here at Kentucky Steam, and we can put you to work. So if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, visit KentuckySteam.org. If you live in California, well, you and I are both originally from Michigan. That's 6.5 hours away. We try to be here as often as we can. If you can't be here every day or even every month, that's okay. We want to use you where your strengths and talents and abilities are used best when you have time available. So it's not something that you have to be here for all the time, just as long as we know that we have your support. But if you can't volunteer, maybe you're somebody who, just can't get around that well, you can support us by making a donation. We're going to have some more information in the future on some fundraising initiatives, so be on the lookout for that. But if you want to make a donation right now to support this vision, to support Chris Campbell's original dream of getting 2716 running again, and now this incredible economic development project, you can do so now. Click the link in the video description or go to KentuckySteam.org. With that said, if you're watching this on Facebook, like the Kentucky Steam Facebook page, share this video. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. We'd love to have you be part of our journey. Joe, thanks so much for stepping up. I'm really glad that you're here, and we look forward to what 2025 has to come. Thanks for tuning in.